Garmisch-Partenkirchen is a little slice of alpine heaven, just 1 and a bit hours south of Munich. In this video I'm going to show you the colourful towns, some stunning mountain scenery, hearty food and also a couple of places to visit if it rains. Stay tuned to the end as I will also show you a long and lovely hike that takes you past some amazing lakes to a historic town with an epic mountain. To reach Garmisch-Partenkirchen, simply hop on one of the regional trains from Munich. The journey takes just under 1 hour and 30 minutes. You could easily do a day trip to the town, but I really recommend to spend a few nights here as there is so much to see and do. I've visited many times over the years, so I've picked my favourite places. Before we explore the town, I thought I would show you the main alpine attraction of this area, and that is the stunning Eibsee, which is a large alpine lake, sometimes referred to as the Bavarian Maldives due to its wonderful turquoise waters, little islands and tranquil atmosphere. To reach it by public transport you can either take the Zugspitze train or you can get the 9840 bus from the bus stop that is opposite to the train station. The buses are not too frequent and will be crowded all year round, such is the popularity of this location, so I recommend getting to the bus stop as early as you can. There is ample parking near the lake if you are driving. Once you arrive, there are a few nice places to stop for coffee or food if you need it. I chose the Sea Restaurant Eibsee Pavilion as it has a lovely deck overlooking the lake, where I had a coffee and yummy cheesecake that was bathed in whipped cream. After this I needed the hike around the lake to burn off all those calories. There is a nice gentle path looping around the lake and I recommend to do the full loop, which should take a couple of hours. It's very easy overall with only a few gentle inclines. If you're limited for time, then I recommend to head along the right side or anti-clockwise, where you can quickly access some stunning views as well as lovely beaches if the weather is nice enough for sunbathing. On my most recent trip I decided to head clockwise around the lake because on previous visits I'd done it the other way around. Very soon you will find some pleasant beaches with views looking over the nearby mountains which look amazing. As you progress, keep an eye out for the second smaller lake called Frillansee, which looks magical. Most people tend to photograph it from the path, but I recommend to walk down and clamber over the boulders on the right side to get these interesting views showing off the epic mountain looming above, where you may also see the Zugspitze cable car going back and forth. Roughly halfway around the lake you should be able to clamber down to a small beach, where you get some of the best views of the lake and mountain. I stopped here for a fair while to record video and time lapses and just soak in the majestic views of Germany's coolest lake and its highest mountain Zugspitze, which we will chat about later. As you continue around the lake, you will enter some forest parts as the path ascends a little, but keep your eye out for places where you can cut back down to the lake shore for more pleasing views. A little further along is one of the more famous viewpoints where you can get these amazing panoramic views over the lake, its islands, deep turquoise colours, as well as the mighty mountains in the background. It's simply stunning. As you carry on, the path will gently meander back down closer to the lakeside. And it's here that you can easily access many more small beaches where you can take in even more brilliant views. My latest trip here was in autumn with wonderful autumn colours, but I've also been lucky enough to visit in deep winter with lots of snow and the lake looks truly magical. So no matter what time of year you visit, you won't be disappointed. If you're here for a day trip, you could also maybe combine the lake with a trip up to Germany's highest mountain Zugspitze, which is the next thing on our list. Garmisch-Partenkirchen is the main point of access to Germany's highest mountain, Zugspitze, which is 2,962 meters high. If you're already at Eibsee, there is a modern cable car that goes directly to the summit. This cable car holds a few world records for its long single span and was opened in 2017. However, the main way is via the historic Zugspitze mountain railway. The base station for this is right next to the main train station in the town centre. Simply walk under the platforms to the tunnel and follow the signs to the Zugspitzbahn. Head out of the tunnel under the station and you will see the station where you can catch a train to Eibsee and then transfer onto the mountain railway, which goes up to near the summit. From the top, it's a short cable car ride to the peak. I did not go up this time as it's very expensive and also usually overcrowded. So here are some photos from a previous visit. It goes without saying that the views are spectacular, and there are plenty of restaurants, viewing platforms and places to relax, but I prefer one of the other nearby cable cars, which I will show you next. As Zugspitze is usually super busy and super expensive, then there is a great alternative that allows you to get very high up into the mountains, which is the Alpspitze cable car. It's not quite as high as Zugspitze, but the views are still utterly spectacular, plus there are more hiking options to explore, so I prefer it overall, which is why I've been up here 3 times and hopefully more in the future. Even better, the base station of the Alpspitze cable car is right next to the Kreuzeck cable car, so you have 2 choices. You can ride one up and then hike for a bit and ride the other back down. To reach the base stations, you can either catch the Zugspitze train to Alpspitze stop, ride the number 2 bus from outside the train station to the Kreuzeck Alpspitzbahn stop, or if you have a little time, you could also walk from Garmisch-Partenkirchen, which takes about an hour but does include some rather lovely views of the mountains from the meadows just outside of town, where you can get these iconic shots of the very distinctive mountains. On my most recent trip, I chose to go to Alpspitze and then hike down to the Kreuzeck cable car. The ride up is quite quick, and at the top there is a cafe and restaurant for refreshments if you need it, as well as a lovely sun deck to sit on. Assuming the weather is nice, of course. On my visit it had snowed recently, so I had to attach some spikes to my boots to make walking easier. It goes without saying that if you are coming up here to hike, to make sure you have the correct clothing with you. Never take any risks on the mountains. Just above the cable car station is this free viewing platform where you can walk out and over the cliff edge to get some spectacular photos. If you're scared of heights, then try not to look down through the metal mesh. From the cable car station, you could ride the Hoch-Alm cable car down into the valley and then hike the short and easy route to the top of the Kreuzeck cable car, or do what I did and hike down by following the very well marked hiking paths. If you don't have the right shoes, then use the Hoch-Alm cable car to bypass the tricky bits. Everywhere you look up here, the views are stunning, so here is a little montage of the route between the 2 cable car stations, and I will mix in some older footage from a winter visit a few years ago as well. Just above the top station of the Kreuzeck cable car is a lovely little restaurant with a nice outdoor terrace where I had some hearty tasty soup to warm me up whilst admiring the lovely views before catching the cable car down. Next up is the town itself, or rather towns, so if you have extra time it's definitely worth exploring. Garmisch-Partenkirchen is actually 2 towns that were joined together in 1935 for the Winter Olympics of 1936. The train station is roughly between the 2 town centres and is also the hub for most of the local bus stops. Although both towns are old and date back centuries, it's the Partenkirchen side that looks older and quainter. It has a lovely main street called Ludwigstraße, which is filled with colourful historic buildings which look nice even on a dull and rainy day like this. And it looks pretty great when it's snowing as well. At the start of the street there is a tiny chapel called St. Sebastian, which is adorned with colourful murals. These types of mural are very common in this area, and you will see many buildings nearby have all sorts of interesting decorations over them. In the middle is the town church, which dates back to the 14th century and has a very pleasant interior, ideal to look around on a rainy day. Opposite the church is a small museum that is also worth exploring. It's housed in a historic merchant's house and has displays telling the history of the local Werdenfels region. It contains many fascinating artifacts, One of the highlights being an exhibition about the history of Zugspitze, which includes the original 1851 summit cross, which is covered in bullet holes from American soldiers who took pot shots at it during the end of World War II. Other interesting things to see in the museum include many rooms full of historical furniture, costumes and other items. The top floor has a fascinating display of agricultural equipment and sledges amongst many other things. The museum is an ideal way to spend a few hours to give your legs a rest from the hiking, as well as learn all about the culture of the region, and is especially perfect if the weather is not so nice. The museum also has a modern annex with many unique costumes and a window overlooking the town. On the other side of the train station is the more modern looking town centre of Garmisch. This contains a larger selection of shops, so if you're looking for things to buy, it's a good place to explore. It also has its fair share of wonderfully decorated buildings to admire as well. There is a very pleasant main square here where you'll find a fun fountain and the tourist information, as well as cafes and shops. Next to it is the Kerr Park, which has many interesting sculptures to discover, as well as tranquil winding paths to stroll around. A little further on is the parish church of St Martin, which was built in 1730 to 1734. Inside it is wonderfully decorated with colourful frescoes showing the full splendour of late Baroque architecture. Garmisch also has a great selection of restaurants serving all sorts of tasty food. Of course I wanted to try some local Bavarian cuisine and so selected this one, where I ordered this yummy pork with amazing crunchy crackling and a dark beer. The atmosphere and service were great and I will definitely be returning on my next trip. Just like every other location in this region, the town is good for visiting any season, and I was lucky to visit here a few years ago during heavy snow that made everything look even more wonderful. As Garmisch-Partenkirchen is in the mountains, it's very likely you might experience some bad weather. Luckily there is one stunning outdoor location that is probably better when it rains, and that is the Partnachklamm, which is a deep river gorge. To reach it, you can either walk or get the bus to the historic Olympia ski stadium, which is itself worth having a look around if you have time. Just try and imagine jumping off one of those massive ski jumps. From there it's about a 30-minute walk to the gorge. There is a small fee to pay to enter, but it's totally worth it. The gorge is about 700 meters long and in some places about 80 meters deep, while all the time being very narrow. The Partnach River will be thundering through it, making an impressive racket, and if it's been raining there will be mini waterfalls cascading down everywhere, so make sure you bring some waterproof clothing. There is a long winding path cut into the side of the gorge, which at some point goes through dark little caves, so you might want to keep the torch on your phone for those parts. Anyway, I'm not going to waffle on any more about how awesome this place is. Instead, here is a little montage including footage from the day with heavy rain and another visit with heavy snow, which was one of the most magical and memorable experiences of my life. I hope when you go that you get such good weather as well. When you exit the gorge, you could simply walk back through it, but I recommend to continue out and explore the lovely alpine valley on the other side. This is a lovely, tranquil place and there are many hiking paths to explore. Once again in the snow it looked even better. I recommend to follow the signs up to Graseck, which involves a moderately steep hike up some nice wooden paths that include some modern footbridges like this one that is rather fun to cross as it sways slightly when you are on it. In fact, the path feels a little bit like an adventure playground. At the top of the path is a lovely little village where I strongly recommend heading into this mountain restaurant and ordering some of their famous soup. I went for the goulash soup, which was very tasty, not to mention very warming, as both times I visited here the weather was cold, so it was lovely to sit inside and get warmed up in the cosy atmospheric dining room. Once you're full of soup, then you can either walk back down and through the gorge again, or you could ride the small Graseck cable car, which you can find by continuing past the restaurant, heading toward the big modern hotel. I chose that option on my previous visit in heavy snow and it looked stunning, so it's a good option. On my even more recent trip, I decided to walk down but via a different route. Just past the restaurant is a path heading down to the Eisenbrücke, which is a small metal bridge that crosses over the gorge. From on the bridge you can look right down into the middle of the gorge to get another perspective on this amazing location. From there you can follow the signs back down where there is another bridge crossing back over the gorge which also has great views, and from there simply walk back to the ski stadium. You might notice next to the ski stadium is yet another cable car. This is the Eckbauer and is a starting point to a really lovely hike to Mittenwald, which takes about 4 to 5 hours along some nice, mostly easy and mostly gentle paths. Along the way are some stunning lakes and views, and then at the end you can catch the train back from Mittenwald. If you stayed in a hotel in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, you should have received a tourist card, which not only allows free rides on local buses, but also allows one-way free ride on this cable car. I recommend setting aside an entire day for this hike, as once you reach Mittenwald, there is another unmissable cable car, so get up early and plan to catch the first cable car up. When you reach the top of the Eckbauer, you might want to take a little detour to the nearby Berggasthof Eckbauer restaurant, as not only does it have great food, but also there are amazing views from its terrace. Once you're ready, simply follow the yellow signs to Elmau. There are signs everywhere, so you should not ever get lost on this hike. About 5 minutes walk from the cable car station is this wonderful undulating meadow with some benches. From here you get jaw-dropping views of the Wetterstein mountains, so it's worth stopping here for a few minutes to gaze at the wonder of it all. From the meadow, continue to follow the yellow signs. You will get a choice at one point between Elmau and Elmau-Alm. Both will bring you to more or less the same place. On this visit I chose Elmau as it's a shorter route. Follow the forest tracks for about 1.5 hours. This part of the hike is not super exciting, with only occasional glimpses of the mountains. But don't worry, what you will see later makes it all worthwhile. Eventually you will reach the Elmau Palace Hotel. From there you need to then follow the signs to Mittenwald or Furchansee. From here things start to get a little more interesting. There is a nice little stream with mini waterfalls with the dramatic mountains looming in the background that makes for a nice photo. Continue along the path and you will soon reach the first lake, which is Furchansee, which is a small but stunning lake. You should make sure you walk around the far side of the lake as the views just get better and better. After walking around Furchansee, then follow the signs to Lautersee, which is another gem of an alpine lake. I stopped here in the little restaurant for a coffee and some yummy white sausages and just soaked in the views of the lake and mountain. I've also been here in deep winter when the lake was totally frozen over and almost impossible to see. From Lautersee, follow the yellow signs to Mittenwald. Keep an eye out for the small chapel, which has some more nice views towards the Karwendel mountain. Shortly after the chapel the path will split and you will have a few options to reach Mittenwald. On this occasion I chose the path that goes down through Leinbach Valley, which has some lovely waterfalls. If you choose the other path it will take you to a viewpoint above Mittenwald with some stunning views like these from my winter trip, so both options are great. Eventually you will arrive in the historic town of Mittenwald. It has some lovely frescoed buildings and a famous main street to explore. The main church here of St. Peter and St. Paul is also colourfully decorated with splendid murals. The church was built between 1738 and 1740 and is a fine example of late Baroque architecture. It's worth having a look inside to gaze at the intricate stucco and frescoes. The main attraction in Mittenwald is the cable car up to Karwendel, which is about a 10-minute walk from the train station. This cable car takes you up to the Karwendelspitz mountain at an elevation of 2,244 metres and is the second highest in Germany after Zugspitze. At the top there is a short circular path up to a viewing point with some benches and some truly amazing views overlooking the mountains into Austria. I felt very lucky when I was here as there was fresh snow and everything looked magical. All the light was sparkling off the fresh snow. I even made a few friends with these little birds. As the snow was quite deep and time was short, I didn't do the full walk around the mountain this time, but I have done it in the past. Overall, I think this is probably my favourite cable car and peak in this area. If you don't want to do the hike to Mittenwald, then you can just hop on the train to get here instead. There is one other unmissable cable car in Garmisch-Partenkirchen that takes you up to the summit of MountWank, and I'm going to be very careful to pronounce that the German way so I don't snigger too much. The cable car station can be reached via bus from the train station, otherwise it's about a 30-minute walk from the train station. This mountain is also quite easy to hike up, which is something I did in the past, but on recent visits the weather didn't really allow it. But here are some photos from the top so you know what it looks like if you are visiting with good weather. On my winter trip a few years ago I took the cable car up with heavy fresh snow. At the very top the views were obscured, but the fresh snow everywhere looked amazing and walking around felt like being in the Arctic or something. It was a very surreal experience and something I would love to repeat again. There's also a restaurant up here called the Vonk House, which serves hearty yummy food as well as plenty of hiking trails. That's it for Garmisch-Partenkirchen. I've been lucky to visit more times than I can count, and I really hope you get to visit as well. Let me know in the comments if you do, and if you have any other suggestions for places to visit, as I'm sure to be back one day. Thanks for watching and cheerio!